Good day, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I'm your host, the voice of reason. So, in today's episode, I wanted to cover the continuing conflict, the continuing dispute between Taiwan, the fully independent island nation of Taiwan, again, the fully independent democratic island nation of Taiwan, and the communist-led People's Republic of China. And because of some comments made by the G7 concerning Taiwan, concerning some of the activities that were being conducted by the Communist People's Republic of China, the PRC decided to launch its largest ever air incursion near Taiwan into the Taiwan Air Defense Identification Zone. And the 28 aircraft in question were an assortment of J-11 and J-16 and some larger cruise missile carrying bombers that flew in a southward direction towards the Pratas Islands and then moved further northeast towards the southern area of Taiwan. And quite frankly, I think the Taiwan military is used to this by now, and Taiwan is not going to let itself be the subject of this media hysteria that claims that the PRC would have the ability to suddenly occupy the island. And it is a wise decision by Taiwan, probably not to really be too concerned about these aircraft encroachments into these southern airspaces. The military of Taiwan fully understands that the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, its Navy, the Air Force, the Naval Air Force, the Marines, the amphibious assault forces, do not have the ability to launch an operation to seize control of the main island of Taiwan. It's highly unlikely that China, the PLA, has the ability to even seize control of the mid-islands of Pengao. I do not believe that the training, the preparation, and the assets are present for the Chinese to mount such a large-scale amphibious operation. Even taking these smaller islands, probably 20 miles or so off the coast of Taiwan proper, about 30 miles, and this island, Pengao, is roughly from the mainland about 100 miles. So if you take into the context that it would be incredibly difficult for the Chinese to mass a force and then seize Pengao, then it would absolutely, and I've discussed this before, not have the ability to seize the main island of Taiwan. You would really have to delve into aspects of amphibious warfare and gain an understanding of just what a monumental feat this sort of invasion would be. It would be unprecedented in quite literally human history. The closest thing we could probably see to the seizure of the main island of Taiwan would be the D-Day landings. And I believe that the forces would need to probably be larger than what occurred during D-Day. Taiwan is a large island with 20 million people. The force density is much more dense than what even occurred in Normandy and what the Allies were facing in terms of the German forces near the D-Day landing sites and in France. The force concentrations on the main island of Taiwan are incredibly robust. You're looking at probably close to 1,000 tanks. Once reserves are marshaled, in excess of 200,000 men within just a few weeks. And again, the Taiwanese are going to have much more time to observe the buildup of forces if there is in fact a buildup to launch an invasion of Taiwan. But the first invasion would be towards Pingao, and that in and of itself would be an incredible feat for the Chinese military. Just seizing this small island, again, which is probably 5 miles by 8 miles, the main island here, and then obviously these other areas which have fairly significant urban buildup, and there are military assets all over these islands. There are multiple combat battalions, and obviously more forces could be moved in to this area, and then obviously the civilian population and the police forces could arm itself in preparation for any sort of amphibious operation against these midline islands, so to speak. But I think at this point Taiwan is just really over the whole concept of these threats by China. China is not going to invade Taiwan. It cannot invade Taiwan at this point. Now, could something change in the next few years? Could something change in a year? Well, possibly. I mean, we could see a massive mobilization by China in which its merchant marine fleet is moved into military service. We could see the mobilization of the civilian and military industrial complex by China for a rapid preparatory operation against Taiwan. But that's going to take at least a year, and that's going to give Taiwan plenty of time to marshal its forces. And at the same time, Taiwan is starting to create its own indigenous defense industry. Well, it already has an indigenous defense industry. It is producing its own fighter jets. It has taken the 2 U.S. main battle tanks, the hull of the M60 and the turret of the M48, with some of the fire control mechanisms of the M1 Abrams, and have melded it into an adequate armored vehicle that could defend the island of Taiwan. And more resources in terms of defense procurement are underway, both indigenous and that of overseas, in terms of the United States providing main battle tanks, the M1 A2. They are also, the United States is also providing 60 plus new F-16 Vipers, more advanced aircraft, in fact, than what the United States Air Force flies in its current F-16 fleet. And the one thing that I continue to hear in terms of the Chinese trump card, so to speak, is its ballistic missile capacity. Yes, China has the ability to fire a bunch of ballistic missiles at Taiwan and possibly destroy its air defense in terms of targeting air bases and destroying aircraft on tarmacs and in hardened bunkers and shelters, and targeting the entry points of some of these uh, mountain air shelters that these underground air shelters that the Taiwanese have created. But doing that it sounds a lot easier than actually conducting said operation, because quite frankly the Taiwanese are just not going to just stand by and let the Chinese bombard the island with ballistic missiles. Taiwan has its own ballistic missile capacity and can attack probably targets as far as Beijing. Again, Taiwan has the ability to produce a host of systems, and fairly advanced systems. Some systems quite possibly are even more advanced than what China is producing. Maybe not in terms of aircraft, but in terms of air defense systems, air defense missiles, some of the anti-ship systems that the Taiwanese are building are quite capable systems. And again, that's even before we start talking about an actual amphibious invasion of Taiwan, which will simply not occur. It's just, again, it's completely ridiculous to even think about that China has the wherewithal, the training, the ability, the skill set, the knowledge of the operational art, and the amphibious capacity to mount such an operation. It's a lot easier for the media to say, hey, China is going to launch an airborne and amphibious operation and seize Taiwan with its 2 million man military, but that's simply not the case. It's much more complicated than that, and fortunately, the Taiwanese are very much aware of this. Are the inner islands closer to uh, China at risk, such as Kinmen? Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it would be a bloodbath even to seize these islands for the Chinese. It would be incredibly challenging. And then as we move further out towards Pengao, that is, I'm not even sure taking, again, this island is within reach of the Chinese in terms of understanding and know-how. Obviously we have seen the Chinese conduct training exercises having to do with amphibious landings, but none of these training exercises are of the scope or of the size that would be needed to seize even the island of Pengao. They're just, and I say they, the Chinese, are just not ready yet. And I believe the Chinese know that as well, at least in terms of the Chinese military leadership. Now, could the political leadership make a decision that could be catastrophic for the military leadership? Yeah, I think that could in fact happen if the military leadership doesn't have the wherewithal and the ability to pull the political leadership inside and say, hey, look, we simply don't have the capability to do this now. I mean, we could do it, we could launch an operation, but the chances of success are by no means remotely guaranteed. And again, I think we're probably looking at, in terms of military action, that would consist of blockade or the seizure of some of the closer islands to the Chinese mainland. But again, we'll continue to see this rhetoric from the communist Chinese, and we'll continue to see some of the aircraft operations encroaching on the Taiwan aircraft defense zones, and obviously maybe some even more operations by the Chinese Navy, but an actual operation to seize Taiwan. Just not going to happen. They can't do it. Have a great day, everybody.